Hello, good evening, and welcome to session 8. Now, see, this is a marathon topic. So, we'll be dividing this topic into several parts. So, I don't know whether there will be 2 parts, 3 parts, even 4 parts, right? But it is so good that today's topic is bit light. This abdominal cavity part 1, because we'll be developing the entire concept, right? About the peritoneum, about what is its importance, etc. But tomorrow, definitely don't miss it, because we'll be starting from embryology, and then all the way we'll be learning about the entire reflection of the peritoneum, right? Along with the real images. So that journey, that is from how the peritoneum fold would start, how it will start in foregut, midgut, hindgut, that is what we'll be discussing tomorrow. But just before completion of our today's session, right, we'll be taking the entire thing to that level, so that it will be preparing a runway for tomorrow, right? No, yesterday I was not very well, and so yesterday I had to take a break, right? And so sorry that I couldn't even inform also. So I just sent a mail to one of the student, and I said that please convey the things to everyone. But today I'm quite okay. Okay, all right. So let's start with our today's topic. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Okay. Yeah, today I'm quite okay. So let's start with the abdominal cavity, right? Abdomen, right? This is also called as the Pandora's box, right? Jadoo ka pitara. This is Pandora's box. And actually, I like this terminology very much, because it at times it really happens like that. There are so many things, right? Okay, yeah, Atharva, I told you. Okay, so this abdominal cavity, this is this is the largest cavity, right? It is the largest cavity. Now inside the abdominal cavity, there is one word which will come, is it is called as the peritoneal cavity, right? So it is peritoneal cavity. So what peritoneum is, peritoneal cavity, it is just a covering, right? Now say when we talk about, say, lungs, right? So we say that there is pleural cavity, right? Lungs are covered with pleura. Now that is quite easy, that is quite simple, right? That is quite simple. But over here, this GIT system, that is very naughty. At times, some organs they are covered by peritoneum, some organs they are partially covered, some organs they are not covered. So there is so much of discrepancy. But actually, everything is very systematic, right? So we'll solve that mystery, that why it happens that certain organs they are retroperitoneum. Retro means behind the peritoneum. Some organs they are completely covered with peritoneum, and some partially, right? So we'll see that entire system, because it has to do with its development, completely to do with embryology. So otherwise, if we try to cram it out, right, it's okay, means you'll be able to see that, okay, this is a table, these are the structures which are retro, these are into. No, we'll never do that, right? Because that is against our principle to cram anything. Okay. Yes, heart is covered by pericardium. That is pericardium. So peritoneal cavity, again, we whenever there'll be any of these things, right, we always say that there is parietal and there is visceral, right? These are the layers, visceral, parietal layer and the visceral layer, right? And in between there is a space, right? So over here, can we say something like that there is abdominal wall, right? Abdominal wall made up of muscles. Just underneath, the last fascia which we saw was fascia transversalis, and then that fascia transversalis is in association with the parietal layer of peritoneum. Then there is fluid, and then there is visceral peritoneum, and then there are organs, right? So let's say this is our stomach, right? So just for the time being, we'll be understanding it like this. So when we go like this, abdominal cavity, then that last layer, that is fascia transversalis, there would be parietal peritoneum, there would be visceral peritoneum, right? Okay. Now when it will come to abdomen, two things we need to know. We need to define, because it's a big area, right? We need to define that which organ is where. At the same time, right, we can't you must have seen that many times people explain, this is how people talk on phone, that okay, एक काम करना, फिर ऐसे मुड़ जाना. Now as if it is a video call, right? They say at least at times they like this, कि ऐसे मुड़ जाना, उसके बाद फिर वहां से घूम के ऐसे मुड़ जाना. Now what is that? Right? There has to be a systematic landmark. Now, one cannot give the address like that. My house is exactly the opposite where that cow sits, right? No. Things are like clear cut defined. So, in abdomen, there are so many organs, so there has to be a system, and that system is easiest thing. Divide the whole thing into quadrants, parts, right? Yeah, but actually, say there was a movie, right? You'll say that I am so fond of movies, but yeah, actually, there was a movie called Angur, right? That this was the name of the movie, Angur, right? Quite an old movie, but it was based on the Comedy of Errors, right, by William Shakespeare, in which it's a tale of two brothers, two pair of twin brothers. So in one of the shot, he said that, you know this place. So then he asked this question to rickshawala, and he explained it in such a lengthy way. Finally, Sanjeev Kumar said, "के चलोगे तो क्या हाँ तो क्या चलो." Right? So it was exactly like this. Okay, I'll just remove this, otherwise. Okay. So here it is. To solve all these problems, simply divide the whole abdomen into four easy quadrants. Right? This is much easier. This is much easier. One line, it should be passing through umbilicus, right? A landmark, something which we cannot miss. And this second one is absolutely a midline, right? So this divides the whole thing into, no need to even say, right? Right upper, left upper, right lower, and left lower, and all of them, they are quadrant. True? They are quadrants. So we'll not spend much of the time explaining that, okay, this is the liver is mostly it is in the right upper quadrant, this is the stomach which is into left upper quadrant, etc. Right? This is quite self-explanatory, and as such we shall be discussing liver, stomach, duodenum, jejunum, ileum, everything as a separate topic also in extensive length. Fine. No, I tell you, no, seriously, means these cows, dogs, at times they are so brave. Means I drive Scorpio SUV. Now, even if it is going at the speed of 80 or 100, right, that cow will be sitting so comfortably right in the middle of the road. Means it is like you, if you wish, you take the turn, right? That cow, that dog, they are so brave, they won't stand from that point, they won't even look at you, right? It is like you have to change your path. So you are right, they are like very brave. Okay, so this is This is like, these are like four quadrants. Well, sometimes we feel that this quadrant part is very easy, right? Let's make it bit complicated. Yeah, they are like, who cares, right? So this is where our bravery comes, right? So basically we are medicos, so we can't make things so easy, right? So there comes this mid clavicular line, right? So there are like mid clavicular, right? Just kidding. Otherwise, this system, right? That is just much bit better division of the entire abdomen, right? Bit better. Instead of dividing into four parts, now we are dividing into nine parts. So we'll pick up this mid clavicular line, right? So just from the clavicle, they are going all the way. So mid clavicular line, much easier. And then one more line which will be passing through this is what is called as the this line, this line, right? We talked about this line, sorry, we talked about this line. This is transpyloric plane. Oh, okay, it is written over there, right? I just missed it. It is already written over there. Here it is, transpyloric plane, right? Mid clavicular line, or the left lateral plane, and this is transpyloric plane. So this transpyloric plane, which we said that it is passing through the tip of ninth costal cartilage or the lower border of L1. Now lower border of L1, so yes, we can see that thing over here. This is quite okay. So we just write ninth costal cartilage tip, right? This much is enough. And yes, so many important structures will be passing or will be present at this point of level. And there is one more line. This is what is called as the transtubercular. This one is transtubercular plane. Now this transtubercular plane, transtubercle, so it is tubercle of iliac crest, highest point of iliac crest. So that would be tubercle of iliac crest, right? So this part is done. So now we know at least these four lines properly. This one, right? One, two, this is another, right? I'm making them thick so that we see them clearly. That now we are just interested in that what name should be given to all these nine areas. Let's pick up something which is easy to remember, right? Something which is easy to remember. And that would be iliac, right? No doubt about it. So right iliac fossa and left iliac fossa. So out of 9, 2 down. Okay. This is easy. Umbilical, right? No logic, right? Absolutely easy because umbilicus is there. So easy to remember. So 2 iliac, right? So this is done. This is done, right? Umbilicus, this is done. On both the sides, right? This is lumbar, this is lumbar. Now why I'm telling it? Because see, I used to make locha between these areas, right? Yes, it used to happen. So then I made that pattern. That see, if someone asks about iliac fossa, no problems, right? We'll never commit a mistake. Okay, from iliac fossa go to umbilicus, that is also fine. Then from umbilicus, both sides lumbar region, well, makes sense. Go up, this is epigastrium. Yes, epigastric pain whenever there is acidity. Okay, so this is also good. Now only three areas, right? Where, because I used to think hypogastrium, gastrium is stomach. So I used to think that where exactly, but then I made that okay, hypogastrium, it is this one single area, right? Hypogastrium. So that's hypogastrium is one, and hypochondrium, they are two. So finally, it is this. So what we'll do is, right? We'll just mark this. We'll just mark this. We'll just mark this, and we'll just mark this. Bus. So when you'll be going for revision, you'll just do it like this, that this is left hypochondrium, right hypochondrium, and this is hypogastrium, right? This is hypogastrium. But no need to revise other areas. You'll automatically remember. This is how I used to do. Okay. About this, these are the abdominal regions, right? All abdominal regions along with their contents plus contents. Say, I won't insult your intelligence by just reading this entire thing, right? You know this part. In case if there is any confusion, right, doesn't matter, because whatever the structures, whatever the organs, yes, hypochondrium is below the coastal margin, yes. But well, in my first MBS, I used to do so many gadbad, so many luchas. But then I figured out that okay, this is how, if I remember, so then I never forget. In abdomen and in brain, I'll tell you several such tricks so that you remember it very crisply. Okay. So liver, gallbladder, spleen, colic flexure, stomach, duodenum, pancreas, kidneys, right? All these aorta, vena cava, etc., etc., etc. All of them, right? Why to spend time in just reading this? Okay. All these structures, they are the major topics, right? So we'll see that. Just keep in mind one. This right iliac fossa, keep in mind, right? That's where the appendix is. That's where the appendix is, right? So whenever someone is having appendicitis, it is at this point the pain is, right? More when we'll be talking about appendix. Okay. So now we come to that point for which we were waiting since long. Peritoneum, right? Peritoneum. So in peritoneum, there is one outer layer, and this outer layer, it has to be fibrous. Why? It gives protection. That's its function, protection, right? And then there would be one inner layer, right? This is the inner layer. And this inner layer is having mesothelial cells. So what are they? They just secrete serous fluid, right? So this is inner mesothelial layer, or having mesothelial cells, right? Layer, or you can just say cells, and they secrete serous fluid. Obviously, this serous fluid, it would be doing what? Lubrication. Now the organs which are in abdomen are, they are not for some marathon. But yes, these organs, they will be constantly moving, right? There will be so much of movement, that is because of peristalsis, right? So over here, right, the lubrication is for free visceral movement, right? Free visceral movements. So this would be the function. Now, one interesting thing. You remember we talked about ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm, right? Three germ layers. And then in mesoderm, from both the sides, right, there is development of what's called as the lateral plate. They are called as the lateral plate, right? So from both the sides, those mesoderm, they are there. Now it is this lateral plate mesoderm, right? That is what leads to formation of this peritoneum. And it would be really interesting to understand the entire movement. So just giving you a hint that everything starts, right? This would be the beginning of our tomorrow's topic, right? But say initially the entire gut is like a tube. Then there would be expansion from one side, right, like this. Then once again it would expand. It would be going like this. But then with that expansion, there would be rotation. So that's how, in a very crude way, we have just understood that how the stomach develops. Correct? It starts like this. Now, this gut is very interesting. The nerve supply is such that they are sensitive. They are sensitive to stretch. So there would be pain if there is a stretch. Otherwise, if you cut it, there won't be any pain. They are sensitive to stretch receptors. So there are stretch receptors. Right? So that is painful. Obviously, if there is infection, yes, then also it is painful. But because in infection there is accumulation of fluid, and that leads to stretch, and that gives pain. So in nutshell, they are sensitive to stretch. That's the reason that whenever you go to any of the restaurant where there is unlimited pizzas, right, and after eating those, I don't know what's your count, but yes, after eating that many pizzas, right, how, because of that stretch, right, you feel like that bus now don't want to move. Here is how it looks like, right? This is parietal peritoneum. See how snugly it is attached with the abdominal wall, right? So that is parietal peritoneum. Okay, now at this stage, say developmentally, right, developmentally, I'm just explaining a small concept because this is a concept which we'll be utilizing tomorrow again and again and so many times, right? There is foregut, there is midgut, there is hindgut, right? Foregut, midgut, and the hindgut. Now, when we say, right, initially, so this is like cavity, and but the whole thing is like a tube only. So it is like a big tube, right? Foregut, midgut, hindgut. So that's how they are divided. But then there is development of this peritoneum, and that is what is called as the mesentery, right? So remember the word mesentery. Mesentery. Don't worry as I'm writing on this image, because we'll be having several such images, several, right? So this is just I'm writing for this explanation. So this mesentery, it would go something like this, and that's how it would be covering. But this much is what, and then obviously to the entire cavity. That's how it develops. But this is how it develops in midgut and the hindgut, right? So I'll write over here 2 and 3, right? So this midgut is 2 and hindgut is 3. So far it is okay, easy. But then there is something different in case of foregut. So I am writing over here as 1, right? And what it is, it goes something like this. This and like this. So in case of foregut, we have got two terminologies over here, and they are called as the dorsal and ventral mesogastrium. Bus. That's the thing which you have to remember. So this is dorsal and ventral mesogastrium. With this concept, we'll keep on building up tomorrow, because see from here, now when this gut rotates, so obviously all these layers will start rotating, and there starts the fascinating mechanism of how every peritoneal fold, it keeps encircling one by one all the organs, and organs then they develop in between and then they expand, right? And that's how things go. So just remember this much, right? Mesentery means covering, right? Mesentery means covering. Okay. So over here, if I say it like this, so there would be only dorsal mesogastrium, mesogastrium in case of midgut and hindgut. And even if there is any confusion, tomorrow when we'll be developing, right, the entire gut, right, from the embryological level, right, you will find it much easier. And just this is anterior, right, in case if there is any doubt, and this is posterior, right, dorsal ventral, right. Okay. Right. Now, as we said that, see, you can look at, like, there is all very shiny structures. This is because of the serous fluid. It is because of that serous fluid between two layers. Fluid between two layers. Okay. Foregut. Okay. I'll explain. So this is just bit more. Just in 1 minute, right? As soon as the blank page comes, now I'll explain. So let's see this simple figure. This is where it is telling us about what this is: body wall, fine. Parietal peritoneum, we know it, right? Then peritoneal cavity, that is the cavity which is between parietal and the visceral layer. All right, right. Then these are the viscera. Yes, this viscera will be having that blood supply. Very true. This mesentery, which is a covering, okay, and then that is so-called aorta. Very nice, right? But this gives one idea, right? This gives one idea that in case if anything happens to this area, if this gets strangulated, so that leads to strangulated hernia, right? And it will lead to obstruction of the blood supply, and that will lead to ischemic necrosis. True. So that is what we need to know. Otherwise, rest is all good. And relation to peritoneum. So again, this is the portion, this one, right? Stomach, jejunum, ileum, ascending. This, no, we won't be even looking at it. We just understand this. Intraperitoneal, okay, these structures, they'll be inside the peritoneum. Partially covered, we understand what is partially covered. Retroperitoneal, yes, they are behind the peritoneum, right? They are all behind, posterior. Subperitoneal, all of them, they are at a lower level. So that means they are going into the pelvic area. So they are in pelvis, right? In pelvis. That is the entirely a different region, right? That is when urinary bladder, prostate, seminal vesicles, cervix, uteri, vagina, all these topics, right? They are like separate topic. So over here, let's draw a line like this, right? Our initial discussions would be intra, partial, or retro. True. A simple mechanism, right? Why it happens that certain organs, how can they go posterior? This is the beauty. When the gut is like this, right? This is the mesentery or the covering. Then it rotates. As it rotates, this parietal peritoneum, right? Because this outer one parietal, it starts coming close, and then it is this area which fuses. And when it fuses, so it goes like this, right? And then this is, and now this organ is retroperitoneum, right? It is behind the peritoneum. That's how it goes. So that mesentery goes like this, and the organ goes out of the peritoneal cavity, right? More when we'll be discussing kidneys, etc. But this is a simple mechanism. Okay. So you are asking for that what is that foregut, right? See, the entire tube would be developing like this. Initially, it is just a simple tube, right? And it is divided into three parts, and that is the foregut, midgut, and the hindgut, right? Bus, it is simple as that. And then this entire tube will elongate, then it will dilate at certain place, then it will rotate, and it will rotate along with that mesentery which is covering, right? And there starts the game. Okay. Now there are some names which will be used very frequently, right? So these are some of the names, and these are the names of, say, peritoneal folds. So as I told you that today we are just preparing the runway. Takeoff would be tomorrow, right? But tomorrow we'll be using the words like mesentery and mesocolon and omentum very conveniently because we have already talked about it, right? So peritoneal fold, whenever it would come like a small intestine, right? The peritoneal fold which are covering small intestine, so we'll call them mesentery, right? Basically, all of them, they are like covering, right? They are covering. But when it come to small intestine, we'll say mesentery, right? When it will come to colon, so we'll call them mesocolon, right? Mesocolon, mesocolon. For the stomach, well, stomach is special, right? Stomach is special. We'll call it omentum, omentum. And well, this much is not sufficient. There are two parts, greater omentum and the lesser omentum. And actually it is really interesting that how it really develops, why that greater omentum is so big like a parda, right? And that lesser omentum is which are so small. And then there is one foramen which is communicating between both of them, what is called as the epiploic foramen, right? We'll see, we'll understand it. Okay, till this point we were telling that ligament, so yes, we always used to feel ligaments, so they are all those strong handsome ligaments, right? Over here abdomen is going to change all the concepts. Abdomen will say no, wherever there are double folds of peritoneum we'll call it ligament, right? This is true only for the abdomen. So double folds, right? Double folds of peritoneum, that is called as ligament. So double fold means, let's say whenever there are two organs, right? This is the peritoneal fold between two organs, that would be called as ligament. Say, for example, there would be like gastrosplenic ligament. So it makes sense, correct? Between stomach and spleen, whenever there is, right, ligament means the fold of peritoneum. And yes, we'll be able to see these folds very properly, very properly. And that's the reason that why we are going for one complete session on peritoneal folds, because we'll be seeing embryology, right? Yeah, omentum. These are the names, right? We'll be going into their reflections, all those details tomorrow. Right? Today you just remember these names. Names should be comfortable. Then mesentery, mesocolon, omentum. Omentum will be greater and lesser omentum, right? And whenever we'll be talking about ligament, ligament means two abdominal organs, right? They are with each other, right? Okay. Then, as I said, some conceptual thing, right? These conceptual thing is like that in peritoneal cavity, right? We were just talking about it. In peritoneal cavity, there would be, say this is like peritoneal sac, or right? So there would be a greater sac, there would be lesser sac, and as we said that in between both of them, right, there is epiploic foramen. right? Epiploic foramen. This thing is also called as omental bursa, right? So many things, omental bursa. But let's not complicate the things. Just today is the day to remember certain terminology. So this is epiploic foramen. So we know that there is a foramen who is communicating between these two spaces, these two cavities. So that means there would be two cavities, greater sac and lesser sac. Yes, there would be, right? Related to omentum, definitely, right? That's why that omental bursa, right? So this bursa would be filled with fluid. Yes, it would be filled with fluid, right? And Winslow, right? Winslow, he must be, right? So this is also called as the foramen of Winslow, foramen of Winslow. Okay. Uh, which figure are you talking about? Uh, because things are pretty simple. I think this is the page number 9. Oh, this figure. Just keep it in mind that way. Say this is anterior, right? Why? Because this aorta is posteriorly and this is posterior. So we are talking about this part. This is dorsal mesogastrium, right? This is dorsal mesogastrium, right? Rest of the structures, they are all normal. So I don't think there should be any problem into that. Fine. So over here, when I was explaining, see, this is posterior, right? This is posterior. So basically, it is like dorsal part we are talking about, right? So same way, over here, this is posterior, right? This one is posterior. Fair enough? Okay. All right. So whenever, and now this peritoneal cavity, right? This peritoneal cavity is vital. If anything gets collected into that, then it is dangerous. It is dangerous. So whenever there is collection of blood, right? Blood in peritoneum cavity. So we call that thing as hemoperitoneum. Whenever there is air into that, so it is like pneumoperitoneum, right? Pneumoperitoneum. Interestingly, there is a difference between male and female about this cavity, right? So there is a clear sex difference. Now, what that difference is, that in case of males, the entire thing is lined by flattened epithelium, right? All those flattened epithelium, right? With central nuclei, flattened epithelium. In case of females, things are not that simple, right? Here, this peritoneal cavity, it communicates with external through uterine tubes, right? So when we see that, okay, this is like uterus, and then these are fallopian tubes. This one is the fimbrial end, right? And here is the ovary. And then from this ovary, right, it is this ovum which is released. It goes through this fimbrial end, and then it starts traveling all the way into the fallopian, and in between, right, in case if it meets the sperm, it gets fertilized, it keeps on traveling, and finally it gets embedded into the uterus. So that's like the entire journey. And in case if it is not fertilized, then after some time, right, it is shed off. But for this entire process, there has to be a special lining, because then and then these things are possible, right? And that's the reason that there is difference in the lining, right? Because it is over here, right? Very vital thing is that this peritoneal cavity, it communicates with exterior through these uterine tubes, right? More when we'll be actually discussing, because there'll be several ligaments which will be coming over here. But in simple words, it is lined by cuboidal epithelium, right? So this is like cuboidal epithelium. Another important thing, say when we'll be watching the histology, right, there are cilias, right? Those cilias, they move like this. So actually these are the cilias. They keep on pushing this ovum all the way towards the uterus, right? So that's why it is ciliated. So this fimbrial peritoneum, right, fimbrial, this is fimbrial peritoneum, that is over here, that is here over here, right? There you see it is lined by columnar, but the vital thing is ciliated epithelium, right? So do remember this part. Okay, whenever it comes like, so what would be the functions? What would be the function? First, we saw that it gives that free movements to all those organs, but then it also gives protection. It also gives protection because phagocytic cells are present, right? So much so, right, these phagocytic cells, phagocytosis means it engulfs, right? You have seen that Pac-Man, right? That game, oh, right, that Pac-Man. So I always used to think like that, yes, they are like phagocytes. The way they gobble all those points, right? This is Pac-Man. I think you must have played it. Right? Those who are into gaming, they must have, because this is a very tricky game. Actually, it looks so simple, but the moment you eat that fruit and then you start that reverse journey to eat those monsters. Right? Okay. So this is like those phagocytic cells. And phagocytosis itself, it's a very powerful defense mechanism, right? It's a defense mechanism. And this is a combination. It is like cellular as well as humoral. Yes, yes, yes. When I was in 12th standard, right, this was a huge craze, right? And in fact, I played this game so much, right? And at that point time, it used to cost us 1 rupee per game. But then I mastered two things. One was this Pac-Man. Its actual name was Pac-Man, right? And second was the Rubik's Cube. So then in those parlor, right, if you remember at that, I'm sorry, right, at that time too you were not born, but there were those big machines, right, big machines, and then you have to play with that on both the sides there used to those buttons and then the joystick. And when you start playing, and if someone has inserted the coin, till you complete the game he has to wait, right? And then one after the another you keep on playing on and on and on, and then that person would finally be tired, right? And I used to wait for that कि अच्छा वो चला जाए, तो then I in case if my this my game is over, I'll play even with his coin, right? But so I used to do that. I'll tell you more when we meet, right? So you guys are very sharif. Okay. Then this is like another one. This is greater omentum. Greater omentum. Greater omentum, it is called as policeman of abdomen. Right? So it is called as the policeman of abdomen. When you will do the first darshan of this greater omentum, you yourself would say, yes, it is true because it covers the entire abdomen, right? The moment you remove the entire abdominal wall, right, big one, greater omentum, because it controls infection, right? Very interesting. It controls infection. Okay, so this is the second function. The third function is still more interesting. It is absorption. Absorption and dialysis. Because it is a semi-permeable membrane, right? This entire peritoneum, this is semi-permeable. Semi-permeable means nutrients and few ions, they can pass through it, right? So that's therefore fluid and electrolytes, electrolyte balance. It plays a vital role into fluid and electrolyte balance. Electrolyte balance. Okay. The next is, right, these were like some of the major functions. Other functions, healing, right? Because there it has got power of adhesions. So it is for healing and obviously storage of fat, right? Storage of fat. These are some of the major functions. Now there are few interesting facts which are like good to know. They are like good to know. One, what's called as the paracentesis. Paracentesis. Paracentesis means Paracentesis means that whenever you put an incision, right, you'll be putting several incisions. So especially when you'll be performing any of the surgery, right? When you'll be performing surgery for whether it's liver cirrhosis or hernia, etc. So it is this terminology which will keep on coming. You'll also be coming across laparotomy, right? Laparotomy, where the laproscope is used. You'll be coming across the term ascites, right? Ascites is what? Fluid collection, right? So when there will be fluid collection. And this fluid collection could be massive. Say for example, liver cirrhosis of liver cirrhosis, right? Massive fluid collection. Congestive cardiac failure, massive fluid collection. So all these topics, they will be coming with respect to specific organs. Then another would be peritonitis. Itis. Whenever there is itis, that means it is inflammation, right? So there would be inflammation in peritoneal cavity. So that is peritonitis. We talked about it in case of barium, right? So that's how it really happens. Just a brief thing about laproscope, right? Because this thing is very interesting. Laproscope, which is based on the principle of fiber optics, right? It is based on the principle of fiber optics. So that entire scope, right, when it is introduced into the, say, GIT, actually it has got two things. One, there would be one camera and then there would be one light source. light source. Now for camera, so it makes sense, right? That is easy because you put the camera and then the wire which is outside, and then it is connected with the system, and it can be seen. What about the light source, right? For this light source, there is fiber optic. Now this fiber optic is based on the principle that even if the whole thing is bent, still the light would be traveling and the tip would be illuminating. That's how it gives the light source. In fact, fiber optics, right now also you guys are using fiber optic, right? If you are using internet, definitely you must be using fiber optic, because fiber optic actually gives tremendous speed, right? It is like in IT, will it be passing the light only? Yes, it is the light only. Light is passed. But then this light is this is, I'm talking about IT, right? Information technology. Over here in Laproscope, there is a constant light. There is a constant light. But in case of when the cables which you are using for internet connection, right? When they say, okay, we will be giving you fiber optic, this means that over here on both the sides, this is TX, that is the transmission, this is RX, this is the receiver, right? So over here, there would be light which will be going in the form of pulse at a very high pace, right? So when the light is on, it is called as 1. When the light is off, it is called as 0, right? So it is like, if I want to say that, let's say number 5, right? But it would be converted into 2 raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2. This is what is called as the binary system, right? You must be knowing this binary system. So 2 raised to 0 is 1, 2 raised to 1 is 2, 2 raised to 2 is 4. To make 5, it's like I'll be using 4, I'll be using 1, I won't be using 2. So it will be like 1, 0, 1. So that means light would pass, light would be turned off, again light would pass, and that's how the 5 is transmitted. That's where the, yes, that's where the fiber optics, they will be coming into picture, right? So it is like light passes, light is stopped, light is on, and that's how on the opposite side things are received, right? I don't know in which movie, I don't even remember that, but in that, right, that girlfriend and boyfriend, they used to communicate by switching off their, right, they were like padosi, and they used to switch on and switch off their lights, and that's how they used to communicate. When I saw that movie, I thought that, are they communicating on binary system? I don't know. Okay, so this is like stomach, right? So that is stomach, and this is what is called as the duodenum, right? Duodenum. And duodenum has got 4 parts. So this is what is called as the C loop of duodenum. C loop of duodenum. So first part, second part, third part, and the fourth part. It is the C loop of duodenum. I am just telling this, that stomach is important, but this C loop of duodenum, that would be a very important point, because there would be several structures which will be asked in association with it. And it is in between this C loop, you will have this pancreas. Now this pancreas, I think I should have drawn it like this. It goes underneath the stomach, right? So remember, few points, they are like trump cards, right? One, structures underneath, or structures in the bed of stomach. Very popular, very common question. So that's why when we'll be discussing stomach, we'll pick up this point at length. every structure so that you don't have to cramp, because this will include the blood supply, all the organs. But just remember, this is the pancreas. Now if the pancreas is there, so there would be over here, right, over here there would be spleen, correct. Now if the spleen is there, see how logical it is. If the spleen is there, so then you remember we discussed splenic artery, right, splenic artery, which is branch of that celiac trunk, right. And if it is like this, so obviously the splenic artery would be going like this. If it is going like this, so it would be underneath the stomach, right. So that's how we shall build step by step all the structures, right. One more important thing, this is the second part of duodenum, right. This second part of duodenum is very interesting to us. Why? Because this is the point where two things open. In fact, one, right, the duct which will be coming from top and the pancreatic duct, right. So both of them, so that this is where the bile secretion plus the pancreatic juices, right, they will be released into D2. That is the second part of duodenum, right. Yeah, ampulla of Vetter. Okay, there are two openings of the stomach. Two openings of the stomach. This, let's take another page. This is near to heart, right. We can have a liberty to draw the heart like this. So that's why this is called as the cardiac sphincter. Cardiac sphincter. And this end, this is called as the pyloric sphincter. Now they are sphincter. Sphincter means they are closed, right? So there would be, we'll find that yes, there would be thick musculature over here, which will be closing these ends. That's the reason that even when you do the Shirshasana, right, Ulta, and then you eat something, again, the food will be traveling from the esophagus into the stomach only, right? And from stomach, it won't come out, right, because of the peristaltic movement. So it is like, this is like a tube, right. So this peristaltic movement is like this, like this, like this. That's how things go. So when food comes over here, this posterior side closes, food is pushed further, and then the tube keeps on pushing this food all the way. When this food enters into the stomach, this cardiac sphincter closes, because if this is not closing, that leads to real pain, and that is what gives what's called as the heartburn. It feels like as if there is burning in the heart, and that pain is like epigastric pain. Now we remember, right, that is the epigastric pain, because the acid which is over here, gastric acid, it is actually highly acidic. And if there is reflux, if it goes up, it gives real bad pain, right. So that's why this sphincter is closed. So this is the gastric acid, right. And it is over here, the food is digested. Once stomach is satisfied, it will say okay chalo, let it go, and then the pyloric sphincter opens. There are mechanisms which we'll be discussing later, right, but this is how things move. So everywhere, this stomach is nothing like, but it is like a bag, right, where there is outer musculature, right. Outer layer is muscular layer, and this inner layer, right, this inner layer, that is responsible for all these acidic, right. So that is inner is mucosal. And then there would be like chief cells, etc., which will be releasing gastric acid, etc., right. We'll discuss. Is like a node and internode. Yeah, right, exactly. It goes like this. I like movies so much. Right. So that's how this entire movement occurs. Another thing is that when we'll be discussing stomach, these are the curvature. These are the curvatures, right? This is the lower curvature, and that's called as the greater curvature. Because this stomach is so typical, literally, stomach is so typical because it is this stomach who has made our subjects bit complicated. Otherwise, rest of the gut is very sida sada, means there is very less complication. But the stomach thought of, no, one side will develop faster and second will be, so there is discrepancy, and that's why the shape, it shifts on one side, and then there is development of all those peritoneum. Why we called entire abdomen stomach, though it located only in small area? See, I'll give you the answer of this. Right, I'll give you the answer. Actually, it is very interesting, right? And who said that? Right? Yes, it would be with reference to IT. Right? Now you might, why I'm erasing this curvature, please. Okay. Okay. Chalo. Answer me one question. This is like, see, nowadays, so you must be using laptop. Think about desktop, right? Desktop. So that is what you'll say, this is monitor. Okay, this is monitor. Okay. And what would be it be, right? On which there would be several keys for typing, right? I'm not insulting your intelligence, right? You'll say that would be called as the keyboard. Okay. And what would it be, right? This thing, right? So you'll say this is mouse. Okay. By the way, when you have asked this question, right, do remind me why mouse is called as mouse, right? We'll talk about it. So what is this? What is this? This piece, right? This box is called as, is called as, right? Most of the people, they'll say that, well, this is called as the CPU, right? Exactly. Right, Tanu? See, CPU. But madam, CPU is what? CPU is central processing unit. This is on, if you open, this is the motherboard. On that motherboard, it is this small piece, small that chip, which is the heart and brain of that entire thing. That is central processing unit, which might be i5 or i7 or i9 or i9 black edition, whatever, but the entire process, right? It is handled by this. That is the CPU, right? That is the CPU. That is the central processing unit, which is the most vital thing. Rest of the thing is actually a dabba, right? It is just supporting this CPU. Now it's okay when you go for CPU, then you can have GPU, graphical processing unit, and then you can have a double, etc., etc. But basically, the CPU, technically speaking, this entire box is not called as CPU because it is comprising of motherboard, hard drives, right? Then the SMPS, switch mode, power supply, etc. So CPU is that small thing, and which is the costliest thing, right? The same answer, the same answer. This thing is like abdomen, right? Stomach to bichara is choti si thing, right? Similarly, when we say this entire thing stomach, no, we are very wrong. The way we say that this entire box, entire dabba is a CPU, no, 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 CPU is that small thing. Similarly, when we say the entire abdomen a stomach, right? So this is just in बोलचाल की भाषा कि हाँ पेट भर गया, right? We when we say कि हाँ पेट भर गया, तो we actually move our hand on so many organs, right? बेचारा stomach तो is lying deep. We move our organs, we move our hand on liver, right? Then even if more, if you have consumed more, so even you go towards spleen, right? Stomach, everywhere. Actually, it is just the stomach. Once the stomach is filled, right? But that's it, right? It sends the signal that yes, I am full, pyloric sphincter is closed. That stomach which has expanded because it is like a muscular bag, It accumulates food. Stretch receptors, they send the signal, and that leptin would say, okay, satisfied, that's it, stop eating, right? Subject to, if it is like that free pizza or unlimited pizza, so then we tell the brain that right now you just don't speak, right? It is the point to vasulify the amount of money which is to be given. So go overboard, right? That's what we do. That's what we used to do, right? I used to do. And the best was in hostel, right? In BJ Medical College, in our hostels, that Sunday, that was a feast day, right? And we used to really wait for that day, and literally that canteen wala used to curse us because the morning routine would be run for 25 kilometers, right, along with at the in the cantonment, right, with the military guys, then go for swimming, then take a good bath, and then enter into canteen, and then destroy that person, right? Okay, so all those, they were like sweet memories, because it's like hostel days, they are the finest days in the life. Okay, so this was our our runway, right? Runway is ready. Tomorrow we shall be starting exactly from this point, right? That is the foregut, midgut, and the hindgut, right? And we'll start with the rotation, right? And at the end of tomorrow's session, the entire peritoneal reflection would be crystal clear, right? By the way, why do you call mouse a mouse? Is it because that's the mouse, right? And that wire, it looks like its tail, right? Is it so? See, the reason behind it is that there was a fight between yeah, Windows and Apple, right? Apple, Apple Mac. Windows at that point of time was considered that it is a unit which is for all text-based system, while Mac was for graphics. So Mac, or the Apple people, they prepared a device which was very useful for graphics, right? Which was very useful for graphics, and that thing was called as the Macintosh. Macintosh operated user system enhancement, a device which would be improving or enhancing the user's experience when he is using a Mac. So that's why Macintosh operated user system enhancement, and that was called as the mouse. It was having only left and right click, only two clicks, right? And that's how it used to work, right? Later on, this thing was adopted by even other systems also, other companies also, and it worked like that, right? So this was the thing why mouse is called as mouse. Okay, so thank you so much, right? In fact, I'm thanking you square, because just by talking to you, I could remind all those best days of my life. So thank you so much, and we meet tomorrow. Okay, same time. Thank you, and bye bye. Because tomorrow is a big session, tomorrow is a marathon. So say in marathon, right, there is a long race, right? And before that, there is a session which is called as the warm up session. So today was like a warm up session, that's why aaj itna sa. All right, so take care and see you tomorrow.